Hey. So I've been thrifting again, still some more. Y'all know the deal. But I picked up a lot of chopping boards lately because I'm seeing so many people do really cool things with them. And so I thought it would be cool to take this chopping board along with, these are pieces. I had a long, I don't know, it was a decorative like piece of wood, something that I picked. And we cut them into these little blocks. And so I'm going to use these for feet and use this chopping block to make a little riser. Hi, my name is Royce Hunt Bell, owner and operator of Roycycled Treasures. Let's get started. So you guys, before we get started with this, I've taken this and I've cleaned it really well just to prep it. I am going to get it a quick little sand, and you guys know I always paint white under my decoupage in order for my images on my decoupage paper to really pop. But today I'm actually going to be using Wise Owl's stain blocking primer. And I'm using primer on this chopping board because I can tell that it was actually used as a chopping board. And we don't know like what's embedded in this wood, so we're going to just use a white primer today just to lock back any stains or anything that may come through to ruin our finish. But before I get started, I'm going to take a light sanding block and just sand it a little bit, not a ton, just to kind of help prep that surface. And then we're going to go ahead and apply a quick coat of white primer. Okay, so now that we have our surface all prepped, you guys, I am going to be decoupaging this. And I think the perfect decoupage paper is Roycycled's, let's see, flour sack decoupage paper. This is actually a project block paper, and you get 2 grain sacks with this design. So I have this one, which is kind of neutral, and then I have this one, and I think I'm kind of leaning, I don't know. Which one did I do? I had made up my mind that I was going to do the black one, but now I'm thinking maybe, or the neutral one, but now I might be changing my mind, you guys. Let's go with the blue one. I think I'll go with this one. And the thing about this decoupage paper is that these aren't just flat designs. When you get them, you'll see that there's tons of texture in this design. And once decoupage, it really does look like fabric. So I am just going to cut this neutral one away, and I will save this one for another day. So now that I have my paper where I want it, you guys, I'm going to trim off any excess paper. So this isn't a lot of paper, and I could just decoupage, but this is what happens. If I were to decoupage with this much of an overhang, this paper, as I wet it with my decoupage medium, it would stretch, and this paper would not stretch. And so I would end up with weird stress lines along the edges of my piece. And so I like to trim my decoupage to like 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch to avoid that from happening when I'm actually decoupaging my projects. And so now that we're trimmed, we can start decoupaging. Today I'm going to be using Wise Owl's 1 Hour Enamel in clear, and I'll be using the matte formula. You can get the 1 Hour Enamel in both satin and gloss if you prefer a shinier surface, but for me, my preference is matte. I get these bowls at the Dollar Tree, you guys. I love them. You get 12 of them in a package, and they're sturdy enough that you can reuse them. But if, you know, you leave them on your workbench and stuff dries in them, not that that ever happens to me, you can just throw them away too. So they're disposable, but they're also reusable. And you get 12 of them for, well, $1.25, for $1.25 now. And you guys will notice whenever I'm applying my decoupage medium, I'll unload my brush away from my paper to get the majority of my product off of my brush, and then I'll go back and go really close to my paper. You want to be really cautious. You don't want to pull your paper up and detach what's already been attached to your surface, because then you'll end up with lines that you'll be able to see from the top. And if you deposit too much product right at the line, you'll also be able to see that. Now my felt tip spatula really does enable me to manipulate my paper a little bit more because the felt slides across the paper, but I'm still being really gentle because this is wet tissue paper, right? And if you guys are enjoying today's tutorial and you like upcycling and making your own home decor, please be sure and subscribe to my channel. If you hit the bell, you'll actually get an alert whenever we upload a new video, which is generally once a week. Okay, we're going to sit that aside and let this dry while we work on the feet. I went back and forth about what color I was going to paint the rest of my board, and I'm thinking black is going to be perfect. So I am just going to be using some Wise Owl's black chalk synthesis paint for this part. And it doesn't even have to be a perfect paint, right? I just want to get some color on these, but I don't necessarily need them to have perfect coverage because we want our board to kind of look like an old board that we've had for a while, or that maybe we picked at an estate sale from a 100-year-old farmhouse. You guys know. And these don't have any finish on them. We've sanded off the finish. And so the wood's actually going to absorb a lot of this paint as we apply it. So I'm just being really haphazard. I want to get full coverage in some places and then kind of have not perfect coverage in other places. That's perfect. You guys see how far this paint is going? This will probably be all the paint that I use on this entire project. And I could have painted a full coat and then went back and distressed it, but I'm being lazy. I'm being a lazy crafter today. We're just going to do a choppy job in the first place and just have it look like it's rustic from the beginning. So now that my paper is all dry, you guys, I'm ready to trim. Just a couple of things. Whenever you're working with irregular shapes, you may find that there's like tension here that makes it hard to trim. Just make some little slits in your paper and that'll alleviate that so that you can use your sanding block and not have to worry about that weird tension. And so I have my sanding block here, and I believe this is about a 220 that I'm actually using today. And I'm going to pull it down right over the edge of my paper, and that's actually going to trim it perfectly. You'll notice that I'm only going down and I'm not going up and down, and I'm not going side to side. This is the way that I do it, and I found that I'm less likely to tear my paper doing it this way. If you're new to decoupage and you'd like a really step-by-step instructional on how to do decoupage, then you can find a video here on simple decoupage where I go over everything step by step by step. Okay, now that everything is perfectly trimmed, I am just really loving the way that looks, right? It looks like it's been decoupaged with like an antique grain sack, which is like, you know, what we want. So I do have this hole here that I have to deal with. So I'm going to just cut it in the middle and then go in and sand around the inside of that. And you could use a razor blade for this too. That might be a little bit easier. And voila, it's perfectly trimmed. Now I got a little bit of white paint on my edges, and I have a little bit of white paint showing up under the edge of my paper. So there's two things. I'm going to go ahead and just sand off any of this white that I got around here. I'm not super worried about it because I'm going to go in with my black paint and paint my edge. But if you're working on a project and that's not your plan, these are ways that you can address getting white paint on your edge. So you can either sand off the excess paint, which is super easy to do. See that? It comes right off. Or If you have white showing where you painted white underneath your paper and you don't want that, you can either do what I'm about to do, which is I'm going to paint black around my whole edge, or you can actually go in with some glaze right over your paper before you seal it. And that will knock the brightness of that white back and make it a lot less obvious. Okay, so now that our edges are all cleaned up, we're ready to move forward. I am going to just go along these edges with a little bit of glaze, just to kind of knock back that white line just a little bit. And I don't want to go over the whole paper yet because I haven't sealed my paper yet, just along my edges. So I'm going to be taking a Wise Owl's Black Walnut glaze and just going around, just barely around the edge, just to kind of camouflage that white that I painted under my paper. And I'm doing it before I seal it because I really want that chalk paint to absorb the glaze in order to really change that color. And that's it. It's not perfect. I want it to look rustic, but that way I don't have those super bright lines showing on my paper. So now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to paint this edge using my black chalk synthesis paint. I am loving this project so much. I almost left out my center portion. And actually, before I move on with that step, I'm going to go ahead and seal my paper first. That way if I get any black paint on my paper, it'll be easier to wipe it back. And you guys will note whenever I'm sealing my paper, I'm putting on a really generous coat of sealer. And for a project like this that will be used as basically a second tabletop on your surface, I'll do at least 2 coats to protect the surface. Whenever you're putting a clear coat over your surface of a piece, I always like to take a few moments and look at the piece from different angles to make sure that I haven't had any drips or extra product that come off my brush that kind of ooze over the side, because it happens more than you think. So after I'm done putting on my clear coat, I'm just going to take a few minutes and just kind of inspect it. See, I have some right there from each angle to make sure that I don't have any drips anywhere that are going to ruin my project. So now that we have our paper adhered and we have it all sealed, we're going to go ahead and paint our edges of this board. Now, I could just leave it like this, right? It's perfectly fine, but I think it's going to look more finished if I have a dark edge. And so I'm going to take my brush, and I'm actually going to use the flat side of my brush to paint this edge and try to maintain as much control as possible so I don't get a ton of paint on the flat portion of my surface. And again, if it happens, it's not a huge deal because this is not going to look brand new when we're done, right? So now that we have our edges all painted, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and do another clear coat over everything just to make sure that we're all nice and protected. And you see how I got black paint on that right there? Because I've sealed this already, I can just put a little water on there and just wipe it off. If my paper wasn't sealed, I would have just been stuck with that on the paper, which I guess wouldn't have been horrible, but not optimum. Okay, so I'm going to do another coat of my 1 hour enamel over this and over the black paint so that I can seal that too, right? But I'm going to go ahead and seal my paper as well. And this will be my second coat over the paper. So we're all sealed and we're all dry. I am like super happy with this. Like literally I could screw a little clamp right here and I could clamp recipes on here and have this on my countertop, right? Or I could just hang it for art in my kitchen, but we're going to put feet on this and make it a riser. So now that our feet are all dry and ready to go, I'm actually going to glue them on. Now, if I was going to be like using this, I don't know, a different way, I may screw them on, but for the purpose that I'm using them, it's going to be fine. So I'm actually going to use E6000 glue and just glue these to each of the corners to make this super cute riser. whenever I make risers, I generally get questions like, what do you use risers for? If you are creating like a tablescape, it's always nice to have different heights to put your things on. This piece will probably go on my island, and I'll put something really cute on it. It'll stand a little higher than anything else on my island, so it can stand out. You can use it at dinner parties. Now, this isn't going to be food safe, right? So I can't put food directly on here, but I can certainly put some cupcakes that are in little cupcake wrappers and put them on there, right? So you can use them for different reasons. So my top is stuck, you guys. So I found my pliers so I can get this off of here. I'm tempted to use my teeth, but my grandma said, your teeth are jewels, not tools. Don't be like me, you guys. I opened bottles with my teeth for years, and now I don't have any side teeth. Okay, so I'm just going to take my E6000 and put it on here. I'm putting quite a bit, you guys, because I really want these to stick really well. And I'm going to stick a foot or a leg, however you want to look at that, in each of the corners. I'm way too excited about this project. Like, it came out super cute. I find myself going to the wood section at the thrift store and picking up these little wood items because they're so easy to repurpose. And if you're someone who has like a booth and you're selling things, and right now it's really hard to get a hold of like you know, wood blanks, or they're super expensive, going to the thrift store is a really good option. And I feel like these projects are more sustainable because we're taking something that someone's basically decided doesn't have any value, and we're repurposing it and giving it new value for somebody else to use in their home. And so we're gonna let these set until they are all good to go, and then we're finished. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project and a lot of our other upcycles. Remember, if you like this tutorial, you can subscribe so that you can see new videos. If you hit the bell, you'll actually get an alert every time we upload a new video. I've been posting on Saturday mornings. It seems to be really good. So generally, we're posting new videos every Saturday morning. Again, my name is Royce Hunt Bell of Roycycled Treasures. You guys can find your supplies at roycycled.com. There's actually a link below, and I'll have multiple links for the projects that I've used here today to make it super easy for you guys to find. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. You guys remember, there isn't anything that I've done today that you guys can't do. Like, you can do this, and you can do it today. Thank you.